So Richard Dolan just dropped a video. He's reacting to Jesse Michael's video with his interview with the late Harold Malgren. So he's got some interesting things to say, and some of the things that were said in the interview are things that we've heard in the past. The whole getting like that psychic premonition or whatever when you're in contact with these particular objects. These are not new statements. These are things that we've heard for years and years. So, very interesting reaction. Hearing Richard Dolan's perspective on this whole thing after the interview. You guys like, subscribe, share with your friends. Let's check it out.
Examples, but you cannot say this about Harold Malmgren. You listen to him and you realize it is not possible. This is not a man who was suffering from any form of cognitive decline. This is a clearly brilliant man who remained incredibly cogent during the entire interview. It's really quite remarkable. So what did he say? Well, he said a lot. I'll start with the Bluegill triple prime incident, since that's really what I think is at the forefront of all of this. In the summer of 1962, so Malmgren arrives in Washington. He is immediately thrust into two extraordinary situations. So first, he participated in the Cuban Missile Crisis deliberations. And second, he received an assignment to manage cost assessments for a series of nuclear tests that were codenamed Operation Dominic. Two previous tests in this series had already failed. Malmgren's given a blanket Q clearance. He's getting access to all the nuclear secrets in this capacity, and his specific mission involved a unique X-ray based missile defense system that would use the nuclear explosion's energy to disable incoming missiles. I mean, just this high level scientific expertise here. So on October 25th, 1962, during the height of the Cuban Missile Crisis, the military is conducting Bluegill triple prime at the Johnston Atoll. This is in the Marshall Islands in the Pacific. And this involved launching an Atlas missile carrying a nuclear warhead. So the missile reached its designated altitude and detonated successfully. By the way, I found this interesting because what I'm about to describe here, this is all from Malmgren, is much more detail than what I had learned many years ago from a direct witness of the event, a man that I interviewed named David Noble Whitecrow, who served aboard one of the vessels involved in all of this. It was the USS Finch. And as an aside, I'll just quickly add here that for a number of years, I didn't realize that Bluegill triple prime was a subset of Operation Dominic. I just always refer to this as Operation Dominic. But in fact, Bluegill triple prime was a subset actually of Operation Fishbowl, which itself was a subset of the larger Operation Dominic program. That's just for those of you keeping score. By the way, I was very gratified to see Jesse showed a brief clip of a program that I did with my wife Tracy a couple of years ago on this very topic. We discussed this at length. So anyway, during the test, an unidentified flying object, a UFO, appeared alongside the missile. I'll only add one other thing here that I learned from David in my interview with him years ago, which was that he said during the series of tests that were going on at this time, bogeys appeared regularly during the tests, and he said they would normally disappear just before detonation. So this was not a new thing. So with that said, during this test, this is October 25th, you have another bogey appearing alongside the missile. The military personnel referred to this object as a tag-along. It's a term used very matter-of-factly, suggesting this was, again, not an unprecedented occurrence, just as my witness David had said years ago. So according to the reports Malmgren received, this object was positioned within or near the explosion's fireball. So the nuclear detonation gives off a very powerful electromagnetic pulse that appeared to destabilize the object's flight systems. The object, now disabled, tumbles out of the nuclear fireball. It falls into the Pacific Ocean. You have Navy vessels in the vicinity immediately mobilized for recovery operations. During the clip where Jesse is interviewing Malmgren, he discussed the testimony of David Noble Whitecrow, who talked a little bit about this and just stated it was at 9:59 a.m. The missile launched. Shortly after that, the ship's captain ordered all non-essential person below deck. White Crow was brought above, along with a few other sailors, to witness what he saw was a huge cigar-shaped object approaching at about 10 degrees above the horizon. And there was an emergency response to this whole UFO recovery that was ongoing. Now, one thing that I did not know, which was discussed here, is the official video recordings or film recordings of the test were sanitized, at least in part. A large white triangle was superimposed over the portion showing the UFO tumbling from the explosion. And this segment remains classified to this day, so that makes Bluegill Triple Prime the only Operation Fishbowl nuclear test with permanently redacted footage. All very, very interesting here. So when Malmgren received reports about the test, he noticed mentions of this tag-along object. So he asks questions and he's told matter-of-factly, yeah, tag-along, with no further explanation offered. So he presses for more information, but he was initially blocked with the classic need to know excuse, despite his Q clearance. So he continues to press for details about what had occurred. Eventually, he was directed to travel to Los Alamos National Laboratory for a special briefing. There, he describes Lawrence Preston Gies, who was the director of the Albuquerque division of the Atomic Energy Commission, who met with him. And just for the record, Gies was also the grandfather of Jeffrey Bezos, the owner of Amazon. Yeah. So Gies produces recovered material from the downed object. He shows Malmgren material that had fallen from what they call the tag-along, this object, and he allows Malmgren to physically handle this material. During the interview, Jesse's asking about the physical sensation of handling this material, and Malmgren says it felt weird because it didn't feel like anything. There was no typical tactile feedback you would expect when handling an object. He said when he was handling the pieces, they seemed, it wasn't hot or cold. He almost had no feeling when he described this. But he said he seemed to telepathically receive a communication from the object. Seems crazy, but I will just tell you, in my own research, this is not the first time I have heard such a thing. Just saying. So he heard words in his head, although he later could not recall the exact content. He felt these communications were important, though. He believed the material may have implanted ideas directly into his subconscious. That's just what he said. So Gies apparently is considering this all as a test because he wanted to see if Malmgren would experience this mental reaction to the material. Apparently Malmgren passed this test.
All right, guys, what did you guys think of the video? This whole thing was very interesting. You know, I didn't put this in the last video after Jesse Michael's interview with Harold. I think I just kind of spaced it out, but some of the things that Harold said are confirmation of what David Grush said on News Nation with his admission of everything that's going on in the government. A lot of things that they said, Harold was saying the same exact thing. So is that an admission of truth that just puts out more credibility as far as what David Grush is saying? I don't know. I kind of think it does. Anyways, guys, let me know what you guys think about that, the whole David Grush and Harold's comments. And do you think it adds a little bit of validity to what's going on here? Interesting. Anyways, guys, like, subscribe, share with friends, comment. Let me know what you guys think. I want to hear from you guys. And let's get this video out, you guys. You guys, I appreciate you. Peace out, and I'll catch you in the next one.